All right, so it shows we're live. Let me go check the feed real quick. It's starting up, so it shows that we have a healthy stream. I'm going to copy, do one quick promo. Hopefully that worked, and we are live. So, with me today, I have Bruce Bartup. We've been having a conversation online about the prospect for peace on YouTube. This is what we're here to discuss, the question we're trying to answer. How are you doing today, Bruce?
Doing fine, thank you.
All right. I also have with me a moderator. I'm happy to have you here. I'm very pleased that you agreed to do this, and I hope that this can start the ball rolling for I guess you could say peace on YouTube, or at least some better discussion. I also have with me our moderator, that is the Eldritch God.
Greetings and salutations, everyone.
So we'll be discussing this. We'll start doing about 5 minutes apiece for a bit of time. Anyone who's on the live stream, if you have any questions, we'll let you know when we're open to them. But if you want to drop it and then come back after about 45 minutes and see if we're answering them at that point, you're welcome to. But we hope that you guys stay through the whole thing and then save your questions for the end. And without further ado, Bruce, would you like to start?
Yes, I'm just going to kick off straight in. So this is a very open discussion. What I wanted to say first of all is I think that one of the things which is going to be a big prospect for peace in the future for YouTube is this medium, is the Hangout, because I think that there are far too many monologues of people talking direct to their cameras, which is not a very healthy way for people to develop, I think, and also the comment sections, which are a very big problem in YouTube, because they're so wild and so disorganized, and so many people just want to get in and have their say, tend to end up fighting, and it's very much better medium for human beings to talk face to face. This is as close as we're going to get to a face-to-face conversation, because when you look at my face, you can pick up all kinds of different signals subliminally. It's the way human beings have been designed to communicate. So this is much closer to the ideal. So this will go back to our sort of prehistoric roots, sort of sitting around a campfire, exchanging stories. That's the whole way that humans are meant to communicate. It's not just about your voice, it's not just about the words you use, it's about your whole being. So I think this is very healthy development, and I would like to hear more about the different devices, the different systems, because I know that Mitchell has experience of these. I know he uses Google, I know he uses Skype and other systems which I don't remember the name of. So the technicalities of getting that going, which is easy, which is better, that is all very good thing for peace on YouTube, because I think it's mostly misunderstandings, tiny little misunderstandings which really can kick off great big rows. Also not helped by the practice of what I would call dissemblers, misrepresenters, liars, people over-egg, people over, sometimes hyperbolize a bit much and go over the top. I also think there's a lot of plagiarism, a lot of drama, of course, which we all know about. These are problems which I think we've got to overcome. I think that the main thing which is hopeful is this business of the Hangout, the debate, the discussion, rather than the argument. Rather, the more informal that it can be, the better. I do think these kind of I do believe that these kind of meetings are essential. These are part of the way historically that in classical ages, for example, that human life as a system was developed. The virtues of a system were developed. To discuss the business of the day with another human being with a different point of view is part of the basis of, it goes right back to ancient times. So this business, what we're doing here, is trying to find peace, trying to find some consensus, even about something tiny, is a very important thing. And I've been going for about 3 minutes, I think. So I'm just going to carry on for the next 2. So those, I think, those are 2 big things which I think are very, very important. The quality of our conversation is important. The quality of our human meetings as human beings is important. The content is somewhat less important. I think the more you remember that, the better. It's much more important to keep the conversation going on good terms than it is to win your point or to make your point. Sometimes it's better to shut them all together rather than have the other person be made uncomfortable. So the more we meet to each other, the more we value this discussion, better the prospects for peace on YouTube will be. So that's part of my beliefs. I'm sorry I'm shaky. Everybody at home should know that I have Parkinson's disease, so I will do that from time to time. I'm sorry my voice becomes a little bit indistinct at times. So I'm also getting a bit excited about this because I'm hopeful about it. So that's what I'm going for about 4 minutes. Let's go on for the last one. What I'm hoping to do today is to sketch out a discussion with Mitchell with kind of broad parameters of where prospects for peace. Where did we come from? Where did we go to? What are the big obstacles? What are the big challenges? What are the big sources of hope? So that's what I'm hoping for from this meeting, and I'm looking forward to what Mitchell says. I'll give the last 40 seconds of my time back to the moderator.
And you used 4 minutes 15 seconds. I'm
Hey.
Michael. By the way, I do have a timer. I am keeping track.
All right. Oh,
Do you want me to give you like a warning at the 1 minute or 30-second mark?
I'm fine.
Okay, good. I'll just let you know when you get to the 5 minutes then.
all right. Oh, it's Mitchell, not Michael.
Oh, sorry, Dale.
Oh no, I was talking
sorry.
to Eldridge. You got it right. No,
No,
it's
no,
okay.
no, that's my fault. That's my fault.
It happens all the
Mitchell.
time. It is a common thing for me. But I guess in informality's sake, I'll just kind of respond there and add a few things of my own as well. First off, I mean, I agree. I agree that a big part of the problem with the format of YouTube discussion is it's a lot like phone tag. You don't really have a conversation when one person makes a video, one person responds with a video, one person makes a video, one person responds. It takes some of the humanity out of it. And yeah, that's why like Google Hangouts, a Skype call, Discord, I don't know if you can do video on, but you're able to, even if you don't necessarily get the video, you're able to get voice. And just as much as there's a lot in facial recognition, there's a lot in in-person voice too. And I think that humanizing of those that you don't necessarily agree with is a large part into actually having productive discussion. Comments too, I think the comment section of a lot of things I guess I'm used to people trolling and people baiting, so I've kind of become numb to it, but it isn't conducive to a positive or peaceful discussion for sure. One thing I think too, and this goes back to the humanization, is a lot of people seem to take someone who slightly disagrees or has a certain position, and this also appeals to kind of how you bring up the I'm not a feminist, just to be clear kind of thing. You don't accept that label. A lot of times people will use labels as a way just to shut people down or do other things too. And while I agree with pointing out fallacious arguments, there's a difference between saying, hey, this is fallacious, this is logically unsound, did you mean this, or is this what you're trying to say, maybe this is a better way to say it, or that doesn't logically follow, what else do you have, rather than kind of just being like, oh, that's an argument from ignorance, I don't need to listen to it, kind of a thing. And while I understand that in a formal debate you might want to save the time to actually making your own point instead of reaching out, and video responses, sometimes a lot of people will tend to just shut it down. I've been guilty of this as well. People will be a little bit more dismissive and I guess less open to discussion. They're less open to, it's a response video, but it seems less open to a response to come back that's designed to create discussion. And then it generates hostility. You look at VidCon recently with what happened between Sarkeesian and Sargon, which I think both sides kind of handled it a little bit childishly. I think it could have been handled a lot better. One person interrupting a panel to bring out someone from the audience, and one person yelling back from the audience. It doesn't exactly make either side from an outside perspective look adult or professional. But at the same time, at VidCon, you had people from different sides. You had, Lacey Green meeting with different people from, you could quote, the skeptic community. You had one person named Andy Worski, he and another person who he's always made response videos to, Francesca from MTV Encoded. They actually met, got together, and had a discussion, had a coffee, and that's where we want to see it going. And I think maybe Lacey started the ball rolling on that. But again, with the hostility too, you have a lot of people thinking, oh well, you've traded sides. People not taking, you can't have this facade of hate. You can't, if you're not keeping up this facade of hatred or disdain for one another and actually treating each other like human beings and wanting to be friends and not just be mortal enemies, you can't just be people who respect each other but disagree. That's a big part of it too, and that goes more to the comment section and followers. But I think as content creators, you'd want to be the ones who really need to take the steps to work together. So I think that's kind of all what I wanted to say with that intro part. I don't know how well I did on time.
4 minutes 30 seconds.
Oh, nice. We're saving our time.
So, Bruce, what main topic did you want to address?
Well, I think we just keep going in 5-minute segments, if that's all right. We've got,
all right, that works. Then it'll be your turn now, Bruce.
A lot of nibbles, rather than a big thesis, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Works for me.
So that's the next nibble. Well, there's so much I could come back to with that, Bishop. Thank you very much for that. That's wonderful. So much of my own thinking is reflected in what you say. My own evaluations as well. I'll first of all deal with a couple of points that you raised. And of course, one of the difficulties, one of the first difficulties which you face, is this tension between. There's all kinds of egos get involved. There's a little bit of narcissism in there, which I do worry about with YouTube, because there's a whole stardom. Anguished people we've got to deal with. Lacey does not have a history of entire happiness, shall we say. That's bound to cause complications, and I can't think that we don't make enough allowance for other people's dispositions. I think, as the Rob brother said, our power over other people is more than we know. That really is one of the central problems here, because, of course, we've got one half of the community who believes in free speech in a very open and very direct and very robust fashion, shall we say, and we all the other half of the community who believes in free speech in a very different way, about being respectful to people before you make your point, of avoiding all the kind of trolling and the bad language and the threats and the abuse and the trolling, the doxing and all the rest of it. So you've got more what's sometimes called the social justice advocate side, belongs to believes in free speech being more restrained faction, which is more to do with protection from government interference. We've got sometimes called the free speechers, which are really just social justice skeptics who are saying that no, you must be allowed to be much more robust and cause offence. In fact, if that causes, if we want you the correct logic, the correct argument, cause someone offence, and they must just bear it because that's part of the environment we're in. There's the truth to both of these, and I think you need to be more respectful of other people's approach to them. I could argue the point, but I don't think it's what we're here for. But I do want to recognise that to start off with. There are big problems with different perspectives on different aspects of freedom of speech, and Lacey Green's really been called. There are things I could say there, but I'm not going to, because I think we're more on the getting on with together. So I think we can agree, which I've already agreed with Mitchell. I concede you. There's a matter of concession. The Lacey Green episode, I'll probably add another 5 or 6 to that on top. I would like to actually mention something from the election recently, which we had in the United States, which I think was absolutely horrible. Which was a lady who was advocating for Trump, came on and said about Hillary Clinton was in favour of mixing up babies. Ben Carson, I think should be said, was on earlier in the day on the news group, promoting for us the same story, and all the deluge of hatred and abuse came from a woman, which I thought was absolutely horrible. She was a very nice lady, and obviously believed exactly what she said. She was absolutely trolled horribly by the Democrats, which I just thought was just an epitome of double standards which are going on here. So it's not something which is superficial just to YouTube. It's very broad and very wide. I think everybody is getting very, very angry about politics and other things which are parallel to what I find YouTube as atheists, as rationalists, or skeptics, or whatever you may be doing. I think I would like at that point to have the remainder of my time back.
But
at that point, you had 1 minute and 20 seconds left. So
I speak very quickly, so I'm afraid I do wind down a little bit.
no, it's efficient discussion. It's good. It's good. I gotta work on that myself.
So you're done?
I think I'm done for that spurt, I'm afraid.
Okay, on to you, Mitchell.
Well, and I think you raised some good points right there. We might go off a little bit when it comes to free speech. I'm not sure, but I agree that
Mitchell,
yes.
You there?
Oh, hold on.
Hello, Mitchell. Did we lose you?
I muted my mic in respect just to make sure any noises. I was getting a pen to write things down, and I didn't want to make a bunch of noise.
Oh, I got it. Well, you're on.
The live stream got me, but it didn't get me here. I was stating that, there's a lot of good points, especially about speech. I think that was something I wanted to cover too, is the approaches to speech by both sides. And I'm someone who's a bit more of a, I guess you could almost say, a hard or absolute free speech advocate, who I'm not in favor of. I don't believe in concepts like hate speech and that necessarily. I do believe that words can be pretty powerful, but I also believe we give those words the power themselves. That said, I think that when it comes to wanting to be responsible, I guess, or wanting to be effective, it's kind of like trying to make commerce with another person. You can't expect to have a customer want to continue to be with you if you're very, very brash and rude with them. If they come up to pay for an item and you punch them in the face, they're probably not going to want to come back. I think the same goes to ideas and discussion, but it goes both ways. As someone who used to be a conservative himself, before he really figured I was more of a libertarian, I always thought free speech was a big thing, but I always noticed on every turn conservatives were anti-free speech in certain areas and ways that I didn't necessarily agree with. And then today, we can all point out sort of the social justice advocacy side being more anti-free speech from the attempts to oppose hate speech. And I think that both ideas come from a good place. The conservative side, and that's not necessarily the same with the skeptic, but they come from a good place of trying to preserve, I guess not necessarily feelings, but trying to preserve some sense of societal sanity. Not wanting to disrespect patriots or the military, not wanting to disrespect people who are marginalized or seem to be marginalized or who have had traumatic experiences, and I commend them for that. But there needs to be a limitation on where you draw the line for someone who's actually aggressively trying to harass someone and someone who is just saying something and that's a boo-boo statement kind of a thing. Something that I feel really goes to there, and it's something that bugs me, is the way college campuses kind of handle it, and where it's almost a anti not progressive speech, not even an anti-liberal, not liberal speech, but an not progressive speech. But then conservatives kind of do the same thing. I've seen some skeptics do it too, and the problem is there's a split, I feel, with skeptics. Half want to actually be like, no, we need to have a conversation about it, let's try and have a conversation. And the other half kind of respond with shitposting, with trolling, and being more intentionally inflammatory. And while I understand the purpose of it, it doesn't really, you're not gonna convince people who want to silence others not to silence others by doing the thing in a very sophomoric manner that they're afraid you're going to do. So I think that approach is there. Another thing too is while I understand and respect the private lives of individuals, like say Steve Shives, blocking everybody is not a way to have a good discussion or to get your point across. I feel when it comes to trying to convince people, shutting them out of the conversation is not a good idea. But that's one part when it comes to because we brought up speech in there. That's one of the fallbacks I see. But again, I would point to the fact that recently we've had people in the skeptic community, people from the social advocacy community come together and actually have discussions and be like, hey, you have a point there. Hey, you have a point there. Maybe I'm a bit harsh. Maybe I'm a bit mean. And that's promising. So that's my time.
Good.
Alrighty, yep. About 4 minutes, 30 seconds now. Real question, real quick here. Do you want me to give you points of discussion, or do you guys just want to keep up the back and forth?
I'm cool with the back and forth at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, well, if that changes, let me know.
I'm not running out of stuff, believe me.
I got you. On to you, Bruce.
Okay, good. Right, so coming back to that, it's very interesting, Mitchell. I wanted to raise this whole business of academia, which basically college campuses and where that is coming from. And this business of where academia lies with its special claim to be able to have the sole authority about what is true. And I think it's a very deep thing. I listened to Jordan Peterson. You may be surprised to know that I listened to Jordan Peterson. And I take on what he already says. I don't think he's quite right. I think he's got it a little bit wrong there, but one of these misunderstandings has crept in. I do think he's on the money, because what's going on is that academic language is being, as it were, forced upon unwilling, unprepared, and not only disinterested, but contrary to the best interests of the ordinary working people, as I call it. They have a different term for the ordinary everyday people, but that's what I call the working class. Ordinary concepts which are being built in academia, especially in feminism, feminist studies, gender studies, other studies, are being brought forward and pushed into working lives. For example, like business of sex and gender. I feel very strongly that working people just don't have time for all that kind of stuff. It sounds stupid to say there's more than two sexes. You understand there's more than two genders in the spectrum. It's very hard to grasp hold of. You really need to study to be able to deal with those concepts properly. So that's a very intrusive thing, I think. Also, the business of being arrogant because academics think that they are right, because they've got the control of our culture of what is right is wrong scientifically. It's where you come on to the whole problem of sociology with this business. And of course, we've got a very famous sociologist, Christy Winters on one side. We've got a very famous physicist on the other, Thunderfoot, and we've got kind of hard sciences, soft sciences thing going on. So there's a lot of clashes which have not been resolved for a long time. But academia, its authority to intrude in people's lives is a problem, I think. It's part of what is being laid bare by this tension, by this conflict. Part of the war we got is that tension. So I do feel very strongly about that. This might be slightly somewhat surprising from a person of my perspective. So that is a very, very strong thing for me that I do worry about. I'll take this opportunity, because I'm feeling very confident in our relationship, to bring forward a very difficult topic. Hold on, jazz, because this could bring Ruth in. To talk about the rape statistics which have just come out for the last 2 years, 2011, 2012, issued June 2017. I've just been studying what I was studying, that really did come to me very clearly that the intrusions which social scientists are making into working people's lives are hard to justify ethically. I'm sure that people who did that survey have done their homework very carefully. There's certain aspects which are not grasping fully. When you speak to a working person, it's not like speaking to another academic. I know they know this. When you speak to a working person, there are certain realities which they have to build around. When you go to a working person who may have been raped by the husband 30, 40 years ago, have completely suppressed the memory, and raise that again, that question, were you raped by your husband? Did you do this? Did you do that? Which is very detailed in the survey. That is messing with a lot of memories which are very difficult to deal with. There is a very strong suspicion that social scientists have become a little bit too much feeling that they're entitled to the information. There are some questions which you probably should think very carefully before you ask. I'm sure it's been done carefully, but I don't think it's been done quite as carefully as it would be done if it was emerging from a working class background, with the questions and the onus and the impetus coming from a working class about what they wanted, how they wanted to address that issue. So it's a bit dictatorial, a bit high-handed, and I think at that point I will hand back the rest of my time to moderator, because I don't want to confuse that very important issue by going on to something else.
All right, you had 30 seconds to go. On to you, Mitchell.
All right. No, I think you raise a good point there, and I kind of want to piggyback on that. Is I do definitely think that academia is a really important part of this discussion, and I think it's. I agree that. While I appreciate the work of those who are studying this in university, studying this professionally, there is a sense of, I guess, not so much entitlement, although I see where you're coming from there, and that's a really good point. I feel sort of a sense of being removed, and that might come with the entitlement. That might create the entitlement where being so far removed from the everyday, the working class, students once they've moved on from university and such, being removed from that part of society definitely, I think, contributes to this issue, because it's true. It's if you come up with concepts or even if you discover something through academia, and you try and you don't gradually just work it into life. You don't gradually release these ideas and allow people to digest them before you try and make judgment calls on their personality, or rather their morality, on whether or not they accept them. Kind of, if you think about it this way, it took so long for it to be socially accepted to be tolerant of other races, for multiple races. There's still a few races out there that aren't, in certain areas, in certain parts of the world, certain countries. But for the most part, most nations are pretty tolerant of other races that come in from other nations, other nationalities. The same can be said when it comes to gender. But that all takes time. It all takes society waking up. Let's point back to the LGBT thing. That's something that's big, and I'd say we finally got past accepting same-sex, people, homosexuals, as normal people as they are. Now we're trying to shove I feel like we bypassed those with gender dysphoria and went completely into this, the other genders, before even really addressing the initial binary transgender, if you want to use that term, I guess, to clarify understanding. I feel like we completely skipped over that and are moving so fast that people, one, don't have enough time to process it, and two, when people do try and offer criticism, they're met with this sort of arrogance of, oh, well, you just don't understand, you're not enlightened, you're not educated, you haven't been doing this for as long as I have, you don't understand, oh, you're just, or they also pull the, oh, well, your demographics don't allow you to have an opinion on this. And I think it's very unacademic to try and put those parameters on a person if the discussion is to be about acceptance. I think in tolerance it should be all-inclusive, and I think everyone's opinion is at least deserving to be heard. Now, if it's obviously, if someone's just like, well, I don't accept them trannies because them trannies suck, yeah, that's not an opinion that really should be taken beyond hearing it and like, okay, well, that's that opinion, thanks. You know. But if, you know, an actual someone that might have criticism, I'd say Jordan Peterson's a good example, who has criticisms of the implications of such things, or even just criticisms of the approach to getting these ideas into modern and everyday society. I think that criticism needs to be taken seriously, and it's not. It's met with the same hostility as you would expect to be met towards bigots, and I think that really defeats the overall goal. It's building a double thick wall where it only needs to be one layer thick, because if it seems that people don't want to hear any of the criticism, and that's something I've really noticed from academia, from universities, from a lot of people, and it makes the conversation difficult. It makes it hard to want to work with other people when they treat you as if you
5 minutes.
Okay, I'll be this real quick. When they treat you essentially as I'll take 30 seconds off my next time. But if they treat you like you are just as hateful as a racist hater, you know what I mean? That's my time.
All right, got it. Moving on to Bruce.
Great, good. Well, thank you. Lovely. Just put my timer on so I can see it. Yeah, good. Fine. Yes, great game, Michelle. Very, very interesting what you said there. You probably saw my face just fall slightly at some points. Non-verbal communication is always very helpful. Mm-hmm. First of all, I will just deal with Steve Shives' thing. I'm a great admirer of Steve Shives. He stood up to his audience and said, "If you don't want to sort of play my game, buzz off." It takes a lot of guts to do that, and I'm a great admirer of Steve. I think he's entitled to have whatever he wants on his channel, do what he wants. He doesn't want to converse anybody with everybody else because he's getting too much abuse. Well, that's his choice. I think you have to allow people to have a safe space in total, but a safe space on YouTube certainly, because sometimes it can be pretty grinding what happens. So I think he's absolutely entitled to have all his guards up. The protections in YouTube are there for a purpose. Some people to get it, and Steve thinks he's got to that point. Great, that's his prerogative. Doesn't have to listen, doesn't have to talk. Not obliged to join in if he doesn't want to. I'm a great admirer of Steve. Back him up to the hilt. That's one thing. Just have to put that plug in. It's not trying to convince you. Just put him in my position. So that's that. Second thing I wanted to say is that yes, very interesting about what you say about academia, which I do think again is very important. Just going on from that. What I wanted to say is the feelings that people have when they're interacting with academics are very telling, I think. The story that you told there of the typical SJW, as I say, as I used to call them, that there's kind of first, second year undergraduate who's absorbing all this knowledge about all the differences between all things are nice and all things are nice, and feel they've got a mission, they've got this missionary zeal to impose on everybody else. Whereas their professors are going to be much more circumspect. We've seen it all before, and are going to be much more gentle. And Jordan Peterson, in his former life, was very gentle because that was the reputation he had with the students. Slightly different now, but radically different now. But there is this thing about power, and power is something which I'm very conscious of in this regime as well. The power differentials between big channels and little channels, power differentials between ones with armies of, excuse my French, trolls, or addressers of points, or vigorous discussers of all and sundry. The difference between big channels and little channels is vast. There has been a problem, I would say, I think, from my perspective, not trying to convince anybody, of the feminists on YouTube, which are being particularly harassed, and obviously within those the transgender people, the prominent ones you already know of. So there is this thing about transgenderism and feminism and all the differences which are going on within academic feminism, as it were, as being all wrapped up into the practical day-to-day lives of real men on YouTube, and which obviously was part of the focus of the VidCon thing, which of course that was to me was unfortunately a case of outright intimidation, planned bullying. If I'm not trying to convince anybody of that, just saying that from our point of view, which I can't speak to anybody, not here to represent anybody or anybody. From my point of view, that very much looked like. I'm pretty sure it was actually a case of outright intimidation, although it was very understandable that other people would come to a different conclusion. So that's that. I think also that what was very interesting about the VidCon episode was the relationship between. Don't you notice this between a Sarkeesian who did and Boogie 4299, I think his proper handle is. That relationship seemed afterwards, from the stories that were told, actually forming. I think they may have gone away with a better understanding of what men are about. I would hope so, because I think that, again, as part of what people get from actually meeting in person, I don't think anybody who'd actually met Boogie would actually think it was a harmful bone in his body, but I think that was a very interesting thing that was going on. So it's a real harsher end of the academic type of judgmental intervention, and the softer type of the men's consciousness or men's whatever you want to call it. That's a very interesting potential confrontation, which I think was actually handled in the end to a better communication standard that could be possibly hoped for before. So that's another aspect for hope there.
5 minutes.
Oh, I was cutting off there.
Alrighty, back to you, Mitchell.
Are you sure? I mean, if you wanted to finish that last thought, I can wait a
second. I'm done.
Okay. No, those are decent points, and I think though I want to kind of use that, the way you phrased everything you said, and kind of the way the approach you had on it, is something I think that needs to be addressed when it comes to this, though. Not to kind of turn down a different road for it, but and this is something I brought up commenting on just different people's videos and such, and this is something I bring up in a lot of people and I try to practice in myself, is I guess empathetic discussion, or at least empathetic awareness of other people's view. This also is something I see an issue going back to the academia, and for me, academia, I'm looking more at people who are, I guess, at least past their graduate, their bachelor's degree. You know, they've already graduated studying and at least maybe into graduate school, or even people who are professional for academia, I guess. But I mean, I would include some of the more prominent YouTubers like Anita Sarkeesian could be in that realm. When it comes to that issue, but going back to that though is as you brought up, your point of view, or at least the point of view that you see of others towards that exchange between Sarkeesian and Sargon. That's something that I think people need to practice is, okay, well, this is what I heard, I can see where you're coming from, but then this is what I saw, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? That's a practice that needs to be employed more. And I understand being a bit more harsh with the truth, or a bit more blunt with one's opinion. It's not a bad thing to be blunt with your opinion necessarily. I see it as a form of being honest, and honesty is the best way to go about it. But I would suggest to people is that they need to take that into consideration if they want to have a meaningful, or at least a productive discussion. And if you want to get your point across, then being blunt is perfect. But having a more meaningful discussion in which people come to an understanding, you want to be a bit more, I guess, empathetic in that. And another thing too, and this is something I see every side do. This is something I hate about my own political elections from where I'm from. In federal, state, local levels. This is something I saw when I ran for office. Yes, I ran for office at 22. I was ambitious. Probably going to try and do it again. Yeah, just a shameless plug there. And this is something I've noticed in a lot of other people that they posted in their own videos is, and this is something I have in a response that I'm making to a Ben Shapiro video as well. We need to stop, I guess, to have a good discussion. We need to stop going from this is what my opponent thinks to this is what I'm gathering my opponent thinks based off of this. These are the implications of what you're saying, kind of a thing. I think changing the phrase from making an absolute assertion about people to using the implications of, and this goes back to the whole logic thing, using the implications of their logic to show an issue or to show a potential flaw, I think is better than outright asserting a flaw, even if the flaw is correct. Because I think demonstrating the implications of the flaw go back to are a better way to convince someone. So I guess a good way of saying this, let's make a comparison. Let's say that Sargon's making a video, or let's take even Thunderfoot's making a video about feminism, which he has. A good thing that he did, actually, yeah, he did this. He used implications of certain ideas to show an issue with an idea. This is some of his earlier videos. And it's that type of thinking that I think really convinces people, or at least offers a position people can respectfully disagree with. And that's something I want to see. I've noticed this a lot with a bit more social justice videos that I've watched. And I've noticed this a lot with responses to those videos I've watched, where people say
4 minutes, 30 seconds.
All right, thank you. I will hurry this up. Where they make an assertion, they say, oh, this is what you're thinking, this is what you're thinking, and then sometimes they go down a completely contrived and complex rabbit hole that is completely unrelated on a different tangent, and instead of saying, well, these are the implications and this is what I see, and it's that open discussion is something I think that needs to be done, and that starts with not trying to see your opponent, pretty much not trying to tell your opponent what they are or assume what they are without them telling you, and not trying to understand your opponent's position and their side. And I think that using that sort of mind frame will get you to that point. That is my time.
Alrighty there. Okay, back to you, Bruce.
Great, good. Thank you very much. Good again, Mitchell. Thank you very much for that. Now we're getting really centred on the problem here. There is almost two realities being brought here. One in which there are people who do bad things, lying, betraying, misrepresenting, all those kinds of things, in which they're not. And of course, Sargon, of course, you may have guessed from my submissions that I sent you, is one of my pet hate. I'm very convinced that he's up to no good. So that's a very great concern to me. So there are a group of people who I say are up to no good on YouTube in terms of misrepresenting the truth and so forth and so on. This is a difficult thing, which I know is hard for you to grasp, which I do respect. Which I'm not trying to convince you, absolutely not trying to convince you, but I do think you do need to accept that there are almost two realities, two sets of facts. And on that regard, I would just put forward that this medium that we're running in, this video medium, is a very persuasive medium. If you look at the advertising rates, for example, for video as opposed to audio, radio broadcasts, the rates for television are much better, because I think that it's well established that video is much more convincing a medium than audio is. Certainly much better than print. So we have been bombarded by a great deal of corporate-based advertising, also being bombarded by people who've had education within corporate marketing and the various marketing tricks to use to on people to convince them, to persuade them against a better judgment to buy products or to accept political points of view. We've already had that in famously the last election in the United States, when of course there's all this trouble about Russia and Putin. I won't go into that, of course, because it's much bigger topic. But there are ways to use, sometimes called fake news, but sometimes called techniques of marketing to present points of view which are not substantiated by what other people will call facts. Now, this is a very difficult topic. It's part of one of the nuttiest problems which I think we can face. But I think my best solution to that is if you think you've got one of those, just talk across them. I think the conversation we're having now is much more interesting than the conversation I've ever heard Sargon or any of the others come up with. I'm far more interested in this than I'm in what Sargon's got to say next. Far more interested. It's much better kind of quality of conversation. So two opposing camps, they're trying like mad to come together, which I think I'm demonstrating quite well here. That the hope for YouTube is with dialogue, not with monologue, not with single-sided points of view, but with a dialogue. I think I'm shaking quite a bit now, so I think I'll just hand that back to moderator if you don't mind.
Not a problem. You had plenty of time to spare. We'll move on to Mitchell here, see if he has anything else to say.
No, that's a good point, especially with the whole visual medium thing, how it's a lot more effective. And two, I think that goes back to, that's why I kind of apologized earlier why I didn't have a webcam or anything, because that goes back to the psychology you brought up before of people seeing other people's faces and that, as well as just visually, it adds one more sense to be stimulated for such things. And I agree too that marketing, when it comes to marketing ideas, a lot of people do it in a way that's more easy to digest than maybe more true to reality. And this is something I guess I could say that I noticed. I used to be talking about when I was younger and conservative. When I really got into my libertarian ideas, I was looking up libertarians, or people that what the internet said were libertarians, and I came across Alex Jones, as well as family introduced me to him too. Like they kind of pushed for it, and looking up libertarians, I saw him on the on one list, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe he is libertarian. I'll give him a watch, and I became an info warrior, quote unquote, for a bit. And the method of packing of distributing, I have actually really interesting for another video. I have a really interesting conspiracy theory idea that would go great with Alex Jones. It's a really interesting concept, and it invokes 1984, but not in the way that people would think, not in the way he would think. Alex wouldn't like it. But back to our discussion. He packages his ideas in a very quick and easily digested manner. Quick idea, quick sentences, using inflammatory or buzz language, and invokes his audience. He knows his audience. His audience is typically white male, middle-aged, veteran, working class Christians. And there's nothing wrong with that demographic, but that's his demographic, and he knows it. And obviously in certain orders, but he packaged it in a way that those people will understand. That group will understand, invoking the Bible, invoking conservative celebrities, invoking certain ideas. And he does get other people on. He gets people like Jesse Ventura on. He's had Viggo Mortensen on, and I think he's even had Russell Brand on. Those are all people vastly different from him. So I commend him for that. But he does package his own material in a way that's digested for a certain audience. And I feel that too, brought Sargon. I think that there are plenty of people in the skeptic community that do that, where they package it in a way of that, use terms like red pill and such, to kind of get across certain ideas without explaining it, in a way creating buzzwords. Social justice has its own buzzwords as well, and it does I feel watered down facts and reality and evidence to more of a narrative intellectual fast food that still gets the idea across, but in a bit less of a healthy and really mentally nourishing way. So I see what you mean there, and I definitely agree. It's an issue. I don't know if that's necessarily what you were trying to get to, but that's something I see when it comes to that, the discussing that medium and where it goes and how facts are distorted. But that's a problem with communication, because it's hard to have a conversation with someone who's doing that, or it's hard to respond to that without having to spend hours decoding and breaking down and re-explaining what this means and that means and this means and that means, and trying to find implications within it. It's exhausting and almost makes conversation a chore rather than like you and I are having, which is a fairly pleasant attempt to understand one another. And that's what conversation's supposed to be, like this, an attempt to understand one another, an attempt to bring ideas together and see, I guess you could almost call it intellectual trade. That's what conversations are supposed to be. That's what this is. So I give my time.
Okay, it's about right. Although, unfortunately, I can't give you the exact time because I got attacked by my cat. So I got everything fixed now.
They're trying to take over the world.
Yeah, he's Tomato. He's got an extra toe, so he actually has a thumb. At any rate, on to you, Bruce.
I must say, we did say we stop about 45 minutes for input from the audience, or?
Okay, yeah, this is the 45-minute mark we're at about. So if you wanted to pause here and answer questions, or if you want, I can throw a few topics of discussion out to you, some observations I made while you've been talking.
I see that Mitchell's sliding his microphone again, so perhaps you better go on, Bob.
Okay, Mitchell, you there?
Yeah, sorry,
Nope.
I just did that just in case. I'll try to mute myself so that way I don't, like, if I cough or anything, I don't interrupt.
Right. Now, do you want me to throw out any questions for you from observations, or do you want to go straight to your the chat?
I do have a couple people watching, so I'm gonna drop an invite to people to offer some ideas.
Alrighty.
And then I think if you want to drop a few of your ideas too, real quick, kind of to get us warmed up into that, I think that'd be good.
All right, I'm going to throw out a concept here, and I'm going to explain the foundation of it first to the audience because they may not be familiar with the Pareto effect. The Pareto effect, if you sum it up, is basically if you have multiple different random sources of statistics and you combine them into one statistic, you get the bell curve. A side effect of this is the Pareto effect, where 20% of X results in 80% of Y. And 1% of X results in 50% of Y. It's a pretty standard, there's nothing mystical or magical about it, it's just a side effect of the math. So that's why you get like 20% of your clients produce 80% of your income when you're a salesman. This repeats over and over and over. It shows up in IQ, you name it. There's a variation of it, but it pretty much shows up consistently. So if we accept the existence of the Pareto effect, since you both have been against shit posting, would not the Pareto effect require for there to be that 20% of high quality posts, that 80% of the posting be terrible? That's the question that I would have for you. Please go ahead, start with Bruce, and I don't know if there's anything we'll keep it to the same 5-minute format, I guess.
Is Bruce there? I think he got dropped. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm not seeing him though.
Okay, he may have got dropped.
Well, give him a few minutes. The majority of the debate was over, but I was just a few clarifiers there, but
yeah.
I suppose you could send out your invites to the other people, and then you can have a bigger discussion about it.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I was trying to see if other people from the audience wanted. He may have checked the audience list and seen that we don't have too many people watching. Unfortunately, I'm still a small channel. But I guess I'll offer my position on that. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, he won't be here to hear it, but yeah, feel free. Go ahead.
No, I'll wait and see if I can contact him real quick. Give me one moment. Oh. Again, I appreciate you coming to this to be our moderator.
No problem. I wasn't sleeping anyways.
I guess, yeah, I'll offer that though, so that we don't have to sit here in dead silence. For that concept, I see what I see with that being is essentially it's the idea of having a population wide enough for good good ideas to come through. In a way, in order to have a multitude of victors, you need to have a vast multitude of losers. In a way, I guess, to put it bluntly, in order to have a vast amount of success, you need to have a multitude's vaster amount of mediocrity. And while I wouldn't necessarily say that shitposting needs to be a part of the mediocrity, I could see a lot of people who are just not as good at the conversation be involved. But I do like the idea of advocating more for more speech. I always feel that the response to bad speech, or I guess you could quote hate speech, is not silence but rather more speech. In a way, throwing all those ideas out there, eventually the better ones will stick, and eventually the better ones will come forth and find each other, and they'll be the ones that people will go to. I guess allowing the free market, the invisible hand of the free market of ideas to kind of weed out those who are the shit posters, those who are just trolling, those who are just trying to get a rise out of people, and those who really want to make a good conversation will. And I guess we could say, considering that quite a few people have reached out across the aisle towards each other in the last few months, I think is a sign that those who are both wanting to reach out to each other and good speakers are doing that. So I think you have a point there. I mean, YouTube's huge. We have, hundreds of thousands, or thousands at least, of content creators, and only a handful who are watched that significantly to being essentially YouTube celebrities. So yeah, I think you definitely need at least a strong base of mediocrity. Now, whether it needs to be shit posts or trolls or not, I guess is to be determined. I prefer not to, and just have people who don't necessarily understand, but at the same time, you're still going to have the same issue of someone where someone might point to a troll or a shit poster as, hey, you say this, they say this, so you're just a shit poster. It's no different than if you were to say, hey, this guy, you say this, and this person who doesn't understand says this, you just don't understand. So you still can fall victim to that, but I don't know. I'm just trying to see if I can get a hold of him. Hopefully he isn't feeling too bad. I know he said that his condition might work out, so I hope everything's okay there.
Oh yeah, I was really interested in his response to the question. By the way, I don't have a position on it. I'm just putting it out there as for a point of discussion. I don't lean towards it one way or the other. Okay. If you want to take a minute or two to try to locate him, or if you want, I think I have another point or two that I can bring up.
I actually, he just got back to me. He did lose the connection. All I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna try and send him the link real quick. People will see this, so give me 1 second, and I'm gonna do this. See if I can. There, they can only get sound now, so they can't see what I'm doing. So I can contact him, send him the link to this. Copy link to share. Woohoo! Yay for the technical stuff. I always like it when things get technically rough. I've had some pretty good stuff work, but a lot of times things like to not. Oh, copyright dispute. That's great. Yeah,
well, there's a reason why I usually like to route it through Discord, even though you can't do visuals as well. It seems to be easier to control and avoids technical issues more for some reason.
Yeah, I think that's the medium. I brought up Discord a few times, but I don't think Bruce is familiar with the medium, so
understand.
Yeah. Let's see if it got there. Yeah. I'm going to try to do one last thing, too, just to make sure I get this working. Because I think that was a good question. Oh.
Well, you brought up a lot of good points.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good idea. There we go. So I resent the invite. We'll see what happens. Let's get our visuals back. Bang. There we go. it's yeah. Usually I do this through Skype or TeamSpeak. What sucks with TeamSpeak is because I guess it has the same issue with Discord. Although with them you can lock out people in a certain way. TeamSpeak, you have a channel that's kind of that's protected by a password, and Discord you can obviously have role assignments for a specific channel. The issue we had was if people ever wanted to try and kind of sabotage a discussion, they could come down and do it. But luckily, the Discords I'm a part of are very professional with that, and luckily the TeamSpeak I'm a part of.
Well, while you're working on that, you mind if I plug something?
Plug
Oh, wait,
away.
he's back. He's back. There we go.
Sweet.
There we go.
Oh.
No more need to fill.
All right.
Sorry about that, guys.
No
it's
problem.
all right.
Did you hear what I had to say?
But Pareto effect, just the beginning of it.
Okay. Well, do you understand what it is?
The Pareto effect is something familiar, 20, 80, 100, 150,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Now, if you accept that the Pareto effect exists, would not there need to be shit posters on YouTube? You would need 80% of people to be mediocrity in order for 20% to be the great content. So you were both kind of anti-shit posters. I wanted to bring it up that maybe they need to be there, and that was the point of question for you.
Okay. I don't actually buy that statistically. There would need to be the way the Pareto effect arises is because of the normal distribution. Normal distribution requires a plethora of well-behaved variables, which together make a normal distribution. You'd agree with that? Don't think that well-behaved and shitposting really goes together. It's much more complicated to an extent that much more. I would not expect necessarily a normal distribution to occur.
Okay, gotcha. Understand.
Would you like me to re-give my thing just for Bruce to see if he wants to hear it?
Oh, yeah. If you want to you reiterate for him, if he wants to respond to you, or that's your choice.
Well, yeah, essentially, I think that with respect to the Pareto effect, correct? What's it called?
Yes.
Well, it's pronounced different ways. There's the Pareto effect, the Pareto effect.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's just how you pronounce it.
Okay. But in respect to it being true, which I think, honestly, looking at populations, especially with like evolution, I would accept more that it's true. But that's besides the point. Essentially, what I had stated is that yes, you do need a vast majority of mediocrity, I guess, in order for those better to come forth. However, I had pretty much stated that I don't think that shitposting is necessarily what's needed to be in that mediocrity. It could just be people that don't understand art or aren't as good at conveying their ideas as well as other people. Essentially, my view too is that the answer to bad speech isn't less speech but more speech, and that kind of falls into that. A lot of ideas coming out, the better ones will come forth.
Great. Can I just respond to that?
Yes.
Good. What I would say is actually slightly reversing my point here. Actually, I think that it's very, very important that the trolls or shitposters or whatever you want to call them exist. Their habits and their content are very, very interesting to me. What we're hearing, I think, for one of the first times in history, is the actual vox populi. And they are pissed off. They don't like their life, in life. They feel very, very animated, very, very willing to just go and shitpost all over the place, going up vote, down vote, just blast all over the place, and they're not happy with their lives. I don't think they are happy with their lives. If that's the strong signal I'm getting, I think it's very, very important that YouTube actually acknowledges the existence of the trolls and the contribution they make in criticising and excoriating and just destroying every single thing they see in their path which is not conducive to their interests. This was brought home to me when I read the book, which I think I recommended to you, Mitchell, called "This Is Why We Cannot Have Nice Things" by Whitney Phillips, which is not just an analyst, which is partly an ethnographic trip down a troll lane, if you will, but also an appreciation of them and the way they really show up the modern mainstream media as being corrupt, evil, nasty, vindictive. I think it's probably something we can actually agree on.
Okay.
Alrighty then. Anything else either of you want to bring up about this particular topic?
No, I think that's a good point.
All right. There was one other thing that brought up that somebody else reminded me from a long time ago, and I wanted to bring up to you too. You guys were talking about social justice warriors for a little there. Somebody defined social justice warrior as social, jury, justice, judge, warrior, executioner. In other words, somebody who sees a problem and goes out and takes care of it. Now, there are anti-social justice warriors, but you can't really define yourself as not something. So this person defined anti-social justice warriors as somebody who is OAR, observer and reporter. In other words, he believed his duty was to find problems, observe them, evaluate them, report them, and then he was done. It was somebody else's job to do the judging, the jurying, and the execution. That being the case, do you believe that if you find a problem, you're going out there and, I don't know, you're going through YouTube and there's the daddy of five, if for an example, where the guy's like abusing his kid, you're not sure or not, do you do something about it, which people with the flagging and the, you know, the raising of the awareness, blah, 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 but actually attacking the guy? Or do you just make your video, report that's a problem, and then you step back and you don't advocate for interaction? So in other words, if you find a problem, do you do something about it, or should you be just the one who tells everybody about it and then back off? Bruce, I think we can start with you.
Okay, great. My first, I am, I think, a pretty confirmed social justice warrior. To me, it's not a term of abuse or of irony or of backing off. I'm afraid we are, sorry to break it to you, we are in a position of being in a cyber war. And I'm very conscious that is going on by the side of everything which is going on within YouTube itself. I mentioned the Trump election. I can't write around it. The Russians have involved themselves in your election. Part of the aspect of that was social justice, social media warfare. There's people out there who are actually paid by the Russian government in Russia to troll people, to make up fake stories and so forth. And part of the aspect of whichever way you think about it, part of what is going on here is that. I think we do have to push back against that, however we see it. And I think this is, it's not something we can ride around. It's something which is part of our time, and part of what we've got to confront about this is not just this civilians just having an agreement. It's actually part of what we're seeing is I can't tell exactly where it is and where it is, but there's a definite case that Russians are aggressively manipulating the internet, including YouTube. You watch I follow the Guardian, so I have these stories where they internet all the social media, and YouTube is one of the central places where content is stored because obviously it's video format. So it's as I say, it's the place where the most convincing kinds of fake news, if you want to call it that, will be generated. So there is that aspect, and I think to a certain extent, I think we're more awake of it in this country than you are in America. And I do think that, although it might sound a very strange thing to be bringing up, it's very, very strongly, because of the sort of security services reports you've had, a very big thing. We need to talk about that particularly. So that's part of what's going on with me, my social justice warrior. I am picking up signs of people doing things which are along with the description, fit with the description of what you'd expect Russian nations to do. And I'm very concerned about it, and I'm very active about it. I do think it's my part to report it. And as I report it, I'm reporting it to YouTube, I'm reporting it to anybody who'll listen, and I'm also reporting it to MP if I get that far. I compile reports, I gather data, I sift and sort and I analyse, as you say. But I think it is my job to actually report. And whenever I see something which is wrong, which is clearly not right, I do take a great deal of difficulty. It's taken 3 years to get to the point with Sargon that I have gone, but I'm pretty convinced now that he's a bad apple. There you go. That's not a popular position to take, but that's the position I'm taking. I'm aware that it's slightly aggressive, perhaps a little surprisingly for a guy like me, but it is part of our times, and I think that is very much the way I go for it. These conflicts which we come across are partly just themselves, which are problems which YouTubers have for a long time, and there's also a Russian element to it. So I do think that that's aware of both of those things, and I do think that I am, to a certain extent, social justice warrior, but also social justice warrior for both sides. So I hope I've come up with today with the opinion that I'm not all against the working class, I'm for the working classes It's just that I'm coming from a different angle. I do think there's a certain degree of reconciliation that needs to be done there between academia, as I say, working classes, as I also said. I think I'll pass back the rest of my time because I'm getting a bit flustered.
Alrighty. Mitchell, do you have any opinion on the topic? Or do you need me to repeat it in summary?
No, I think I know the I think I know what you're talking about with that. It's difficult for me because I'm someone who believes that one should step in and do what needs to be done. But at the same time, I guess this is where the question would come when it comes to, I guess, when you're doing something, is just reporting not doing something? But I guess that's more of a weird philosophical question for another day. I would say that as someone who gets annoyed with people putting up videos on YouTube of people being assaulted or getting hurt, and it's like, why are you videotaping this? Why aren't you actually helping them? I'm someone who'd like to help, but then that comes to the question of that creates the problem of the subjective interpretation of help, where I might view helping as going out and saying, are you okay? Calling the police, calling an ambulance, getting them to where they need to be, and someone else might see the position of help as, I'm getting my gun, I'm hunting that person down who hurt you, and that's where the line needs to be crossed. So I guess personally I care to go out and help people. However, I would say as a matter of society, as a matter of civility, I would say reporting it to those who are professionally trained to do so, I think is the best matter, and then try and stand by to help, at least passively, like getting them a glass of water, making sure they're not dead, things like that. Or when it comes to things like reporting, continue to view. So keep yourself near and report, I guess. Another example of this might be the difference between not to put an opinion on there, but a good example might be what happened with Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. Observing and reporting might have not ended in a death. It might have just ended in an arrest, where trying to take action and it resulted in worse. Same could go for online things. When you try and SWAT someone, like, oh, it looks like they're abusing, you could be creating an issue where someone could get seriously hurt if the police are called to a situation and they believe it's one thing and it's really another thing. As someone who's also a gamer online, I have a gaming channel on that too, and I do live streams, I always worry about getting swatted, because all it takes is the police to have the wrong information for something bad to happen, damage to property, physical harm to me, death of my pets, potential confrontation. So I think that there needs to be kind of a line drawn. I say, for the sake of civility, kind of like how we believe in innocent until proven guilty. I would say we should also believe in observe a report over taking action, because you could be wrong, and it's better to have professionals do it than you. But reporting isn't not doing something. I guess that's my position there.
Alrighty. At this point, I start to get farther and further away from what you were actually discussing. So if you want, I can continue with some other questions for you, or we can wrap it up, or you can go to chat if there's anybody there. It's your choice.
I'm trying to see if I can get some people. I'm trying to get some people from the audience, but no one seems to be biting. I don't know if after I don't know if the connection went down and people just dropped or what, but we've lost a few people. I guess we could. It's a shame to not be able to get some audience participation, but.
Okay, well, shall we go on about activism and pacifism then?
Sure, let's do it. We could do that. I'll discuss that.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think you had your last opinion that the professionals should be the ones who are involved, the best people who've qualified to deal with this. My response to that is there anything like enough professionals to deal with the internet? You cannot police the internet, certainly not at a social media level, that way. if you block channels, they just pop up somewhere else. It's a real nightmare for the regulators. It needs the force of the civilian population, just because of their huge numbers, to do this. But I think that actually the ex-director of FBI, James Comey, is when I was briefing to the White House, to Congress Intelligence Committee, said that he wished that there was more people in America pushing back against the Russian infiltration, Russian influence. That sounds very weird to you, but it was something she said, and I was very glad to hear it, because that's the kind of thing I do. So okay. I believe in activism. It's not. I understand the point you're making. It's just not the right time for it.
Okay, gotcha. Do you want to respond, Mitchell?
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it. With kind of activism being, I guess. And well, I'm not against activism at all. I'm very much someone who believes in petition and protest. Consider myself a constitutionalist, not your typical constitutionalist. A lot of people hear the term constitutionalist in America and think of one thing, and I'm very far from that. I don't fit the definition of what a lot of people have, at least the connotation for that term. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is where I would refrain from advocating, and obviously most people don't. I'm not saying this is your position or that you advocate for this, but I would definitely say if one is to advocate and to be active in trying to change a situation that's broader than just a situation, like one person harassing another, or a group of people fighting with another group of people, like in a small controlled environment, but this is on a larger scale, a societal scale or something like that needs political activism. I would say always try to keep it civil, open, and avoid violence. And I guess I'm not saying that's what you don't, but that would be my message to activists.
Because, what
was that?
You done, Mitchell?
Oh yeah.
You done? Okay. Response, Bruce?
Please, I certainly would not want to advocate anything like violence. I mean, goodness sake, no, that's not what I mean at all. This is the question of if you see something in terms of a falsehood, or what you think may be fake news, or you see something which you think is illogical, I think you have an obligation as a citizen now, because of the situation we're in, to address that logically and calmly and rationally, and try, if you possibly can, because it takes great patience, to persuade the other person of your point of view, because of that background and because of the importance of the issues involved. Now, of course, it's very difficult because we've got lots of schisms here, and Russians are very good at exploiting schisms, and we've got big ones on YouTube. It doesn't surprise me that this is all coming together. It's a very weird thing possibly for you to even say, but it is the consensus opinion of your security services that this is going on. So for activism, yes, but absolutely not violence. That's the last thing we need, especially not in America. Grief, all those guns, my goodness. No. Activism, violence is illegal, it's immoral at any time, and it's stupid right now. I'm bogglingly stupid. I do feel strongly about my own side, if I say what I mean, because they do get into a bit of Antifa kind of territory, and that's just absolutely not the way we need it at all. It has to be peace on YouTube very quickly, from my point of view. So by all means, trying to persuade someone of your point of view logically, rationally, calmly, but if you possibly can, but try as far as you can. If you don't succeed there, you just move on, find somewhere else to, because there's so much trouble. Walking towards the sound of gunfire is not hard on YouTube right now, believe you me. And it's partially how I arrived at this point, just by following the trail of nastiness to YouTube. To reach the YouTube atheist community and reach the YouTube skeptics community, because I found that was really the key places where all this mud was coming together. So that's my history. That's part of why I'm here. I am here to try to right wrongs if I possibly can, or to at least chip in my little 2.5 cents worth to the debate, if you want to put it another way. So I'm very much for activism, but absolutely not violence, doxing, aggressive moves of that kind. Reporting, yes, only if it's sincere, only if it's merited, only if it's properly conducted, only if it's completely in terms with the terms of service and solidly based. No false flagging, no false reporting, absolutely not. The last thing we need is false anything right now. So that's my response.
Alrighty. Any other topics you guys wanted to bring up?
I guess a good question would be from my end is, do you think that piece on YouTube has actually started the snowball has already started to attain a bit more of a better discussion?
I think, as I said, this technology discussion we're having now, even though we've got no listeners at all, I think we're just so much more interesting than anything else which I've come across. I'd far rather do this than listen to any other video, put it that way. So I think this technology has got the makings of a big change in YouTube. I could be wrong, of course, I'm just guessing. So that is really one of my big hopes, as I've said, that YouTube piece can come quickly, because it's all about the dynamics. I don't know if you noticed that YouTube changed their notifications, the comment notifications recently. It's actually very difficult to actually follow a troll conversation now. So I think there's things that YouTube are doing which are obviously conscious of their responsibilities and subtly in a nuanced way, and trying to influence the outcomes for the better. So I do think we've got a lot of things writing for us, good one on both sides, being one of the primary ones, which is manifestly obvious in your good self and Eldritch God.
Yeah, and honestly, from my opinion too, I think that we're definitely headed more towards a better discussion and a more civil one. And well, I don't think that ever, and I guess this is a thing to clarify too for people who may be watching. By peace, we don't mean a necessarily complete agreement. We just mostly mean like civil discussion and a good, again, like I said, a good trading of intellectual ideas, because you can't have. This is just an issue I think when it comes to politics. As much as I like the concept of debate, debate doesn't work when it comes to finding a solution necessarily. You have to have compromise. You have to have people coming together to do that, and this is how you do it. This is how we do it. We come together and we talk. We say, hey, these are my ideas. These are my ideas. Okay, what could work together? And eventually you find something that works. It may be more towards one way, maybe more towards another. It could be an outside opinion that magically works. Thank you. And I think that's a mindset that's been lost a bit. And while I understand that YouTube isn't the public sector, it isn't government, it isn't charged by the citizens to find solutions, and the people on it aren't either. I think it'd be refreshing to have some people who at least acknowledge that and try and make that work. And I think it does. Another example too, I've seen a few cross-example live streams or some even just response videos that are outreach. Take Roaming Millennial and Milo Stewart. A while back, they did a collab about I can't remember what it was. I think it was about online discussion or something about, and the two people who have completely different views coming together to do something. Another one, Blair White. She made a very heartfelt response video to Riley Dennis about being trans, about because she had heard that Riley was going through another part of her transition that Blair just went through or is about to go through herself, and that sort of reaching out and being human, that goes back to the humanizing of people, and that's something we need too in order to reach discussion. And I think humanizing people helps with a better response video. If you act like you're responding to a human rather than just a video, I think you get better content out of it, and I think you come away with a better understanding. I think you have a less potential of people going over and being like, I just watched so-and-so's channel, screw you, and leave. I think it lowers that, but that's just my opinion. I have hopes for it. I think it's going well, in my opinion.
Alrighty, then I would postulate a question for you guys. We when I use the word recently, within the past year, had the media assault on PewDiePie, which was to label him a Nazi. It failed utterly and actually increased his channel by almost 5 million. There most recently was Donald Trump tweeting out the CNN wrestling meme, which then resulted in CNN threatening to dox a private citizen, which then drew the internet together to defend this guy because they said, hey, that could be me. Are we seeing this pulling together because this is a natural evolution, or is it because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and as soon as cable news goes belly up, it'll be okay, that problem's taken care of, now on to you. Discuss. Start with Bruce.
Okay, well, this is all very CNN are regarded as a complicated ally rather than an enemy, because of course they are very critical of Donald Trump, but of course they are mainstream media. Already said what I think of them. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult at this moment to really negotiate this. The role of the journalism in our lives is very important. It is a conduit of the truth that resides in our mind. The fact that we cannot trust our mainstream media right now is crucial. I think the trolls really do show up, and they, for example, do something like concern trolling, or what they do on the web Facebook sites of deceased teenage suicides, for example. It's a famous example from the Whitney Phillips book, which I recommended earlier. What they're doing there is really mirroring, she says, I think it's correct, the way the media treat it. Media treat it as an object for sales to gain mileage. And I think there's a lot of that in the way that media handled Paul Donald Trump thing. They've been very two-faced about it, very willing to cover him when he was being controversial, getting lots of viewerships. But now that he's actually president, they've actually tried to muscle down and do some very nasty things too about it afterwards. So that's a very big thing about the situation we're in. Cannot trust the media, cannot trust the mainstream media, cannot trust the democratized social media like InfoWars. I don't think there's anyone who, certainly I wouldn't trust Alex Jones more than I would trust CNN. You have to make up your own mind. But also, I think that what you say there, Eldridge?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me? I might be losing the connection again.
Oh, whoa. Are you there, Bruce?
Or Bruce might be losing the connection.
It froze for a second.
Okay, so
okay, there he's back.
You were asking clarification on Eldridge's question.
Yeah, I didn't hear the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, did you ask me a question?
I don't think I did. No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think I've wound up now.
Oh, okay, you're done. Okay, Mitchell, on to you.
Sorry we didn't catch the last few seconds of that, but I think we got the gist of it there. I agree that journalism is really important, but when it goes to the question being posed about whether or not, I guess I lost it a little bit there, but well, yeah, I guess in a way, it's almost like, not to say that these acts are necessarily terrorism, but I see it incomparable to say acts of terrorism or severe acts of violence bring people together. I guess severe, what can be perceived as attacks, bring communities together. Take, for instance, what happened to Rodney King. This is kind of topical because OJ just got, they're slightly related. OJ just got out. But take what happened with Rodney King. That really united the American black population together, at least large pockets of it, as kind of an identity, as a unit. What's going on with CNN? What happened with that and the meme and the threat of releasing information and stuff, that brought the everyman together because they identified. The same with PewDiePie. A lot of people identified with PewDiePie as fans, as well as I identify with PewDiePie to a certain point because I'm a YouTube gamer as well. I try and exploit, I guess, for a lack of a better word, the same niche he does, in a way. Now, I think that's a part of human nature. We stick to those that we see are similar, whether it be ideologically on the superficial. I think that's part of the problem with things like identity politics. We stick so much to I'm a Christian, I'm gay, I'm cisgendered, I'm black, I'm this, I'm that, too much to a certain point, and take any criticism as attack. So you get that rounding of people who just want to be behind someone, or they take something as, oh, that's an attack on me. But at the same time, I do think that it's very useful, because in times where I guess people, as you pointed out, Bruce, you know, there are people that have a lot more influential power than others, and people who are irresponsible with that power, using it to threaten those who are less powerful, like an individual versus a mega media, you know, a large media outlet or corporation, or someone who's very influential in politics, or a CEO or something like that. I think it's good to see that banding together, and that kind of goes too to what you said about advocacy earlier, Bruce, about how sometimes you need a large population of people to come together to really combat ideologically with speech and through our civil systems to combat those that have an immense amount of power just in their one hand. So I think it's a good evolution. I think it's a more positive thing. But too, I also share your distrust of most media and everything else. So I hope that.
Let me just put in that point.
Yes.
PewDiePie worries me. Big channels worry me. They're powerful, and powers without accountability is always a bad thing. Power will always corrupt. Absolute power will always corrupt. Absolutely. PewDiePie is worrying to me. Just such a vast channel, and there's various other vast channels, and I think they're all are lacking accountability there. The media, to one extent or another, are very accountable to the law. The new media are not so much. Every mass media circulating, there's always a legal department. There's always someone making sure they stay clear of defamation and breaching security limits and so forth. The new media is not like that. It's a difficult thing which we are negotiating.
That's a good point there. Yeah, especially about
Already? Okay, was there...
I think I've done now, if you don't mind, chaps. I think I'm shaking a bit too much to carry on.
Okay, at this point, I'm just going further and further out with questions, so as far away from the point as you can probably get after this. So, yeah, I think this is probably a good place to stop. We've explored a lot here. We've also, I think we clarified a few of the points there that I think you guys kind of touched tangibly, and then you moved off. Any other final closing remarks?
I would be very happy to come here back and do this again.
Same here, actually. I'm pretty happy to have done this. I like these kinds of things. This is what I used to do for a bit. I used to have a Thursday interview with someone, whether it be just a friend of mine who, you know, I want to hear their opinions, or, like I said, I got a few other YouTubers to come on and actually talk to them. It was great. So I really appreciate you coming out and agreeing to do this, Bruce. It actually does mean a lot to have someone reach out and want to have a discussion.
It's my pleasure. It's my privilege.
Yeah.
All right. I only have one question myself. Your symbol, Mitchell, is that a hedgehog with his hand in his pocket, or are you a giant ear?
He's supposed to be a porcupine, or I mean a hedgehog works too. Hands in the pocket.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Just checking, because for a while there, I thought you were a giant ear with a pointy nose and glasses. It was very odd looking. Alrighty, well, thanks. It's been a pleasure to be here.
This is actually what I look like, so...
Yeah.
Oh, if you knew Mitchell, you'd know he actually looks like that too. That's just
boy.
He actually is. It's a hedgehog.
Okay, I'm going to say goodbye now, chaps. I'm going to hang off.
All right, you have a good night, and it's been fun being here.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Bruce.
Mitchell. See you again.
Take care, alright? And thank you, Eldritch. 1 second, let's shut the live stream off.